Hello and welcome to Everyday Eternal. My name is Jacob Corey. I'm joined,
And I'm Matt Pavlik.
and we're joined here today with two special guests. Why don't you introduce yourselves, guys?
Hi, my name is Julian Knab.
And I'm Philipp Schönegger.
Now, you guys may recognize Philip from the most recent Grand Prix Paris. He got top 4 finish with a pretty cool build of Miracles. We'll get to talking to that in a little bit, but I think, Matt, why don't you take the floor?
Yeah, so Julian finished in the top 4 playing Miracles, and Julian finished in the top... What, Julian?
Well, I went 6-2-1, so I didn't day 2. That's
Okay,
like top 180, I don't know.
Still pretty good. For a tournament with, almost 1,600 people?
Yeah.
Not too bad. So, I guess today we're going to have Philip talk about his experience at the tournament. Julian's going to talk about his experience, and then we'll kind of just go from there. So, Philip, do you want to start us off?
Okay, sure. So I played Miracles at the Grand Prix, and I've been playing this deck for about 2 years now, something like ever since Terminus was legal, and I've been playing every variant there is, like Rest in Peace, Heaven combo, or Top Deck combo, or the most recent, and I prefer Snapcaster Flash Miracles. So, for preparing for the Grand Prix, I tested a lot of matchups, and the two best decks for the Grand Prix were like Patriot and Team America, so blue, white, red, or black, blue, and green Delver. And those matchups felt so incredibly easy. You just weren't sure how you were even losing them. Like pre-board, your deck is very, very well equipped to deal with any of the tempo strategies nowadays, because Nimble Mongoose and Canadian Treasure isn't the top deck anymore. So Swords, Snapcaster Swords, followed by Terminus on their true name Nemesis, is probably the best way you can deal with any of those strategies, which leads to a very easy way to the mid or late game where you completely dominate your opponents. So this deck felt very, very well prepared.
So what made it feel so well prepared? Just the fact that you have Terminus, Swords, and then you also have Counterbalance Lock for the mid to late game?
Yeah, correctly. It's like the tempo decks felt way too easy because they didn't have Shroud. The combo decks mostly folded to Counterbalance, at least 2 of them, so Storm and Elves combo. While Show and Tell is a little bit of a 50-50 matchup, you don't really want to play it that much because they can just nuts you away, especially game 1 where you have so many dead cards. But the ability to destroy tempo decks and hold out a fair game against mid-range and control while having good and not so good matchups against various combo decks made this deck a very, very good choice for the Grand Prix. I even managed to go 9-0 on day 1 without any bias, because none of these decks I played against High Tide, Murfolk, Chunt, Elves, Rakdelver, Defend Texas, Esper Blade, Patriot, and Reanimator. None of those really posed any threat to my deck, like none at all. The only times I lost was where I kept 5-lander with Brainstorm on top and didn't find anything besides more lands.
That's too bad. So how is your build of Miracles different from the kind of traditional build?
First of all, I'm running 2 Ponder alongside Brainstorm and top, which makes about for 10 cantrips. Most other decks play 4 Brainstorm, 4 tops, and maybe 1 Ponder, besides Raphael Levy's build with 4 Ponder, but nobody's running this one. I'm playing 2 Entreat Angels as of now. Most of us have been going up to 3, so did I, but I was convinced that a second Ponder is probably better than another win condition, because it lets you smooth out all those draws, all those clunky hands where you have so many bad late game cards, and having a Ponder makes them way more keepable, especially one-lander. I love keeping one-landers on the play, on the draw every time. And I do play 2 counterspell mainboard. It's been falling out of fashion lately, but all of the top performing Miracles lists at the GP did play 2 counterspell and 2 Ponder, which, well, it's not so much of a coincidence, but yeah, I think it's just the better setup for this deck now. I did play 3 Snapcaster Mage and 1 Vendilion Clique. Most other people play 2 Snapcaster and 2 Cliques, but I still value Snapcaster's versatility over Vendilion Clique's sometimes bad draws in matchups where you can't really value a 3-1 body.
I mean, I know at least for me, I'm running 2 and 2 just because of the fact that I see a lot more, like say, Sneak and Show and stuff where I'd want Vendilion Clique. So I run 2 in the main and 1 in the side, whereas you're running 1 and 1.
Yeah, correctly.
Now, Philip, I'm kind of wondering here. I've seen Joe Lawson stream a lot with Miracles. Actually, that's pretty much the extent of my Miracles knowledge. And he's a really big proponent of Venser Shaper Savant. Have you ever considered running him as well?
Yeah, I've considered every card and I've tested every card. And Venser is he's too perfect to be good. Like you can do so many awesome things with it. You can neuter Infernal Tutor by bouncing their own a land into their otherwise empty hand. You can stall everything with Caracas and stuff. But as said, he's just too awesome to be good. He's only really good if it's in the late game and if you have a Caracas or if the opponent is doing something very special. Other than that, it's a 4 mana, I'll unsummon 1 permanent of yours and block. I don't like that. I'd much rather prefer a real late game winner like Entreat Angels, which actually wins the game, or disruptive cards that actually disrupt the opponent every time, like any other card in my deck. I mean, if I'd be able to play 2 or 3 Caracas and a bunch of Vendilion Cliques and Vensers, yeah, I'm gonna run him. But playing more than 1 Caracas isn't what I'm going to do, so Venser hasn't been a consideration here.
I mean, I also played the 2 Caracas version with 3 Clique and 1 Venser, and I definitely prefer the Snapcaster version. Being able to buy back, at least for me, Enlightened Tutor, Swords of Plowshares, Brainstorm, etc. has just been too good.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing with this too, but I didn't really like it because Vendilion Clique is awesome when it's awesome, but other than that, it's just a 3-1 body that doesn't really do a lot against decks where you can't value the information. I am pretty much fine with not having a good matchup against Schönegger. Like that's really the only matchup I have where I say I'll gladly sacrifice disadvantage in order to have a good matchup against like really everything else. Death and Taxes is always a kind of a lopsided matchup. If they have Ether Vial, and we are in great danger of dying like to any of their threats. But if they don't have Vial, we're in good condition anyways because they pretty much fold to our Jace plan. But other than that, there's just no bad matchup for the list I constructed besides Sneak Attack, which of course would be easier if I play more Caracas, more Cliques, and more Vensers. But I just don't like the other matchups when playing so many legendary flash creatures.
So Philip, tell me, how do you feel about Liliana? Because here in Germany, people have been playing a lot of Miracles over the last 6 months, and everybody was like, whenever you hear a bad beat story, it involves Liliana. Because every time Liliana resolves, people are like, and then I lost the game. So how do you deal with that?
Okay, Liliana is very good against us, but she doesn't really win the game. So it really does depend on the board situation whether Liliana is really good or if she's not. If the opponent, probably Bug Delver, can't apply any pressure, which they never can by the way, Liliana is just going to hellbend both of us. Which leaves most of us, the Miracles player with the Divining Top, while the Bug player draws from the top of his library. Which probably leads to us finding Entreat Angels or any flash creature sooner than they are able to stick a threat. A friend of mine whose opinion I value even boards out Liliana of the Whale in Esperblade when facing Miracles. It's Esperblade there, but still, Liliana is good if they can deploy any creature and then follow it up by Liliana and restrict my hand size. But if they don't, they're just going to hellbend both of us, leaving me with Sensei's Divining Top and a way bigger advantage than their draw a card one turn. So it definitely is good, but you're rarely losing a game against it. Like in my game round 15, I got ultimated with Liliana. I had 4 lands in the top in play. I just tapped top, drew a card. So Liliana destroyed 2 lands of mine. Perfect. Good card, I guess. Like 3 mana, wait 5 turns, destroy 2 lands. Okay, that's fine. And you can still go like, okay, I'll tap all my lands, float all this mana, okay, now choose your pile. I'll keep the pile with the top, activate it, spam endless angels, you're dead. So it's really not that good at winning against us.
One last question about your specific deck, Philip. I noticed that you ran 2 copies of Counterbalance, and that to me seemed pretty unusual for a Miracles deck that's
No.
kind of soft lock.
I ran 3.
Okay.
Most of the other ran 2, and I strongly advised him to run 3. Not everybody listened to me, and that didn't make top 8. But like, I think like.
So what do they know?
Yeah, sure. Playing 2 counterbalance is just strictly wrong, I guess. You really need them. Like, yeah.
Going back to Raphael Levy, he's actually playing just 1 counterbalance.
Yeah, that doesn't seem correct to me with all the rumored storm floating around in Europe.
Sure, and he played a Disenchant member too, like at Strasbourg. So that's always been a little strange. He plays 20 lands and 4 pounder. That's not how I and many others approach this archetype.
I don't know. I've really liked 3 Counterbalance.
Yeah, sure.
I have seen some versions, especially like last year, that ran Counterbalance with Stoneforge Mystic and some Miracles, that ran 20 lands, 4 ponder, but they also ran like a more active win condition with Stoneforge Mystic.
Yes, I did try this version on Friday at the Grand Prix Paris. It didn't work out too well, but I was able to make one very cool play. Like, okay, it was on the extra turns, and it was first blood. So normal Miracles wouldn't have been able to win against elves, but because like how you're going to deal damage to them before they deal damage to you. So
Got shot.
I had Stoneforge Mystic and Bazaar in hand, and he had a lot of elves. And when he was attacking, I was activating Stoneforge Mystic, bringing Bazaar in play. In response, he was not attacking. Sorry, he was not attacking. In response to the Living Weapon trigger, I spinned my top, terminused away his board, and attacked for the win.
All right. Well, why don't you go over some of your interesting tournament experience through the rounds as you played, just to give the listeners some idea of what you faced, what gave you some challenges, what were some interesting plays, all that good stuff.
Okay, sure. One of the matches in the early rounds I did struggle with was actually Merfolk. You know, like, it's very hard to evaluate this matchup because at first glance it looks like creatures and lands and you gotta win. But those creatures are either island walking, so you can't Entreat block them, or they're uncounterable, where Cavern of Swords or Ethervial, or you can target them like Julian and Nemesis. I did manage to win game 1 by casting 4 consecutive Terminus. My opponent didn't like me very much after this. Game 2 he just nutsed me away, and game 3 ended with me killing everything of him and deploying Counterbalance Lock with 2 and 3 on top. And he then played Lavan, Cephalid, Empress. Like,
Who plays Lawan? Jesus.
Luckily enough,
Against an angel deck, no less.
yeah.
Unless he's got like Painter Servant out or something.
Luckily enough, I had no Red Elemental Blast, so he was dead anyways. On a later round, I started with Island and Divining top, and my opponent was just like face palming and, oh my god, what are you doing? And I was like, okay, you sir are on Elves combo. And so he was. He didn't win a single match against me, a single game. Didn't work out. I even faced Joe Larson in round 8. I was pretty excited to play against him. The first games, I had no idea what he was playing, so in the first few rounds we were just fetch and go, fetch and go, fetch and go, and like on turn 5 he cracked his fetch lands for Tundra and Volcanic, made Mystic, so he was probably on blue-white red Delver. He didn't even manage to get me below 15 in both games, so yeah, this matchup felt pretty easy. There was another guy, I looked at the pairings, and his name was Espen Espensen. Now take a guess what he was playing.
Espen Blade.
Like, when you see a name like this, you can't fall for this. Like, I will not fall for this trick. And yeah, he did play Esper Blade.
Esperson playing Esper?
Espensen playing Esper, yeah.
Oh wow, that's I can't even I mean, it's 6:30 in the morning and it's just blowing my mind.
You know, there's this Dutch guy whose last name is like Rofelos, Frank Rofelos, I believe, and he's actually playing elves, so that's also pretty cool.
Yeah. In round 9, I handled 3 Grizzlybrands that were on the battlefield. He was on
How does that work? All together?
no,
Team Grizzlebrand?
no, not together. So he was playing Reanimator, and he was fetching and thought seizing a lot in the first turn. So then he reanimated his first Grizzlebrand. In response to the draw 7, I Swords to Plowshare did. So I killed the first one. He didn't have the Force of Will. I was stuck on 2 lands by this time, but was able to cast the Brainstorm every turn. Still didn't find lands, and I put double Terminus on top every time, and he then exhumed his second Grizzlebrand with like 6 cards in hand or something, and I Terminused it. He didn't have counters. Then he show and telled his third Grizzlebrand. I Terminused it. He didn't have any counters. He then fetched for a Ponder, went to 1 life, and passed the turn, and at the end of his turn I played Snapcaster Mage. He was like dazed, I forced it, and he was dead. Like, he resolved 3 Grizzlybrands, I killed every one of them, and he got finished off by a Snapcaster Mage. I really liked that game, like, this was fun.
That's pretty impressive.
It reminds me of every experience I have with Reanimator.
Yeah,
Well, the fair version of Reanimator, which is
Tinfins.
attack you for 3 turns. Yeah. No, that's the unfair version.
Okay, sure. On day 2, I was facing Chant, and there was one very interesting line where he had Chains of Mephistopheles, and I had a Brainstorm. And when he passed the turn, he didn't pass the turn. He cast Hymn to Turaj, and I was like Brainstorm in response, discard my whole hand, put on top, Entreat the Angels and Terminus. Guess who won?
I won.
Yeah, I mean, like, he had all his hate pieces, but he even discarded 5 or 6 cards of mine in 1 turn and didn't win. Like, it was very amusing. Chains of Mephistopheles is a very distracting and good hate card, but still it doesn't seem to work out every time somebody plays it against me.
No, see, the problem is people are playing the wrong hate cards. Dimir Charm, that's what it's all about.
Dimir Charm, that this counters the sorcery, right?
Counters a sorcery, but it also, you can look at the top 3 cards of somebody's library, put 1 on top and 2 in the graveyard.
Oh.
So you could be like, you're trying to like, hey, I want to tap my top to cast my Entreat, and your opponent goes, no, Dimir Charm, put your Entreat in the graveyard.
Well, that's mean.
Yeah, if the Reanimator player had Dimir Charm, he would have been able to kill, to swat your Snapcaster Mage too.
It's also a kill spell for power 2 or less.
It just costs 3 mana, right?
Just 2. Black and a blue.
Wow.
It's actually not a terrible card. It's not great.
Well,
just not
pretty
terrible.
versatile, so...
Maybe look into it as you're... might want to be prepared for it, Philip.
Yeah, kind of.
It's coming to get you.
But many...
So what you don't know is that Kobe and Matt have actually stocked up on like 24 copies of Dimir Charm and are just looking to get it popular.
Sure.
We don't manipulate the market. We just buy up all the
Yes.
brands.
Yeah, generally, until round 12 I was undefeated, and then I was 2 consecutive rounds against the Mirror, both without ever winning a single game. The first one was against Maxime Gillas with mainboard Red Elemental Blast. Well,
Well, that's going to be tough.
AKA Cheater Miracles, as Joe Lossett coined it a couple weeks back when he was showing it on stream.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't win a single game, and in the next round I was prepared against Paulo Vitor, Dama da Rosa, and guess what? He destroyed me, even from a mulligan to 4. He
Wow.
Now, I think you mentioned in some of your notes that your specific build of Miracles was not quite as favored in the mirror as other decks. Why is that?
It's okay against the normal mirror, but the other miracle decks on the top here had either Red Elemental Blast mainboard, which gave them the feeling of already being postboard while playing the first game, or playing Stoneforge Mystic in the sideboard, with 2 Mystic, 1 Battlescar. Even though I knew he was going to bring it in, I could not afford to board accordingly. I did discuss this with a few friends of mine, and we agreed that we still have to play our normal plan, and like I have 2 explosives and 1 disenchant for this plan, alongside 3 counterspells. So we felt like this was enough, but in game 2, Paulo Vitor was like, turn 2 Mystic, I counterspell. turn 2 Mystic, okay, turn 3 Mystic, resolves. Followed up by Jace the Mind Sculptor, okay, I'm dead. Like, it happens. When preparing for more mirror matches, I might even add a third Vendilion Clique to the deck. Like, this is the only change I would probably make over the third Flusterstorm. This might be an idea, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm playing. I'm playing 3 Vendilion Cliques total and 2 Flusterstorm, and I've found it okay in the mirror.
That's definitely a reasonable way to put it.
It's really tough. I mean, I found the mirror matchup to be who can protect their top, basically.
Yeah, or whoever draws the top. Like, I didn't most of the time, which might have led to my loss anyways, but yeah. Top or counterbalance or whatever.
Well, pretty in-depth. Do you want to discuss your sideboard at all?
Let's take a look at it, just to make sure I'm not missing something. Yeah, as far as I know, my Red Elemental Blast Pyroblast split is wrong. I was under the assumption that Red Elemental Blast was superior when facing misdirection decks. Several people, including judges, have told me they are not. So, as far as I know, it will be better to play more Pyroblast than Red Elemental Blast. It of course has the upside of upping the Flusterstorm count should you ever board in those, but yeah.
Yeah, I think.
And that's just because the Pyroblast can be redirected to anything, but it only counters a blue thing?
Well,
Well, I think on the stack, Pyroblast does the same thing, which is, I mean, the only spell you're going to really be able to misdirect to is generally going to be a blue spell. I think the only issue is when you're trying to destroy a blue permanent with Pyroblast, then it becomes worse.
Correct.
But how often does that happen against, let's say, a sneak attack deck that already runs misdirection?
Yeah, like never. One thing is the sideboarding plan against Team America. I'm boarding very unusual, like nobody else boards this, very few people board this way. For example, I do not bring in Rest in Peace. And I board out Vendilion Clique. The plan behind this is the following. Every Bug Delver list, as of now, plays Golgari Charms. So they're bringing those in, and Golgari Charms is really good against Vendilion Clique and Rest in Peace. And in order to not getting tempoed out, I board out my counterbalances, my Vendilion Cliques alongside my Force of Will, and I won't bring in any additional enchantments. Only more removal in forms of Engine Explosives, Counterspells, Supreme Verdicts, and Flusterstorms. And, of course, one of Disenchant against Bug, always.
No extra Entreat?
Well, you could bring the extra Entreat over the third Flusterstorm, but this would leave you with 6 win conditions against a tempo deck that can still go like Wasteland. I think 5 are fine. You could even consider going down to 4 actually, but rather 5 than 6.
Now, Philip, I think I saw this stream a little bit, and I noticed most, if not all, your deck is altered.
Oh yes. As of now, it's just like 40%, but I'm working on it. All the money I've got from the GP will probably be invested into more alterations. Like an hour ago, I ordered Counterspells, Spell Pierces, Terminus, and Treaty Angels to be made. Plus, I wanted to upgrade my basic lands from Sundrelin, as those are probably more legal than the ones I had at the tournament. And yeah, it was pretty funny. Like, I asked the head judge before the Grand Prix and at the Grand Prix whether or not my alters are legal, and he said they were. And at the GP itself, one guy sitting next to my opponent was like totally freaking out and wow, those cards are illegal and called a judge, he's cheating. And as he was yelling at me, I was like, okay, I will call the judge. And I did call, and he said like, okay, you talk to the head judge, you can play with them. And in the quarterfinals, Jean-Marie Accard, known as Lee J on the internet, he asked me kindly to replace my altered planes with normal ones because it would distract him. And I was like, okay, so if he's asking that kindly, why not do it? And I did swap out those planes for I don't know, Dark Ascension ones or something. But yeah, it didn't really matter all day long. I've just had one guy standing beneath calling the judge, but yeah, it's pretty fun. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Didn't you tell me at the event that you actually had to change one of the islands because it didn't look like
Correct.
an island?
I had like 5 or 6 altered islands in my trade binder, but only 4 in my deck, and I showed it to him, and he was like, okay, this one looks really great, but not like an island. Please take another one. I was like, okay, so here I got some more. You choose which one to take. And he like, okay, this one looks best, so take this one. Okay, that's fine. Like,
was that the Lorwyn island, the one with like the meadow and the creek?
no, it's the island that was illegal. Didn't really look like an island that's a real island, so it's just like a very heavily altered one. So I'm really fine with it being illegal.
So like you had a bigger mountain on top of it and some forests growing across from it.
Okay, wait. It did look like an island, but it did not look like an island made by wizards, right?
Okay.
It looked like a tropical island.
Well, yeah. Anyways, I've decided to get beta, alpha or beta islands altered now, because those actually look like islands at any time, so I won't have any further problems. But I haven't had any problems anyway, so I heard on this.
We'll provide a link or the pictures in the show notes, so people can take a look at the deck and, you know, give Philip some heads up for the beautiful deck that he played.
Yeah, but I heard a lot of people were complaining about my altars in the Twitch stream. Like, I mean, people always complain about everything, but yeah, still.
Yeah, but that's
yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So I heard that Julian, you were also altering a deck in some fashion.
Yeah, kind of altering. It was, although I didn't day 2, I really feel like this was the Grand Prix I had by far the most fun, and it was a great experience, because I don't know why, but I actually had lots of people approach me about autographs and signing the decks and taking pictures. And I don't know, maybe it's because I won the Bazaar of Moxen, maybe it's because I stream quite a bit. But yeah, over the course of the weekend, I at least signed 20 different cards for people. And I actually had 2 guys that wanted me to sign their entire deck. So that was really crazy. There was this French guy, he was really, really nice and kind, and he asked for, can you sign this card? And maybe this one. Oh, and while you're at it, this one. And so after like 4 or 5 cards, I'm like, so you want me to sign the entire deck? And he, yes, that would be great. So I actually signed his entire deck, and I think I signed everything except for the fetch lands, because he's using them in a different deck, and of course it was an Elves deck, and would be kind of strange. I think it's kind of strange in the first place to have me sign the cards, because I'm neither Richard Garfield nor the artist, but he really wanted it, and it makes a cool story, so why not? We actually took a picture of me signing it, and I posted it to Facebook, and suddenly my sister messages me again, and she's like, what, are you famous yet?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
What you should have done is like, while you're signing the deck, you say, excuse me, if I'm signing your deck, you need to go buy me a cup of coffee or something, please. Taking all this time.
I actually did it in between rounds in the side event, so it gathered quite a lot of people, and it really looked like I was some kind of artist, so I still feel I don't know, it feels cool, but also I think I don't really deserve all that much attention, but you know, in a way you really enjoy it. And
don't worry, you don't deserve it.
Yeah, you already told me.
Now I think Julian, you mentioned that even though the Grand Prix experience didn't work out for you, you still managed to walk away with some pretty cool prizes from side events.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah. So I 6-1 the side event. I can give you a short summary of how the main event. I 6-1 the main event. I can give you a short summary later. So on day 2, I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? Yeah, well, obviously I'm gonna play Legacy. So I signed up for the side event, which had like, I believe, 150 players, maybe slightly less, and it was capped at 6 rounds. And yeah, so I started playing. First round was against Deathblade. I 2-0'd him. Yeah, not a whole lot to say. You're rather favored with elves against most blade decks, except for Blue White Red Delver. So in the next round, I'm playing against this guy, and he's got all I see in game 1 is Wasteland, Punishing Fire, and Groove of the Burn Willows. So obviously I think, oh yeah, that's this new land stack, and I bought accordingly. So while sideboarding, he's like, yeah, you don't really win the first game with Chant against elves. And I'm like, oh, true. What the fuck, man? Of course he's playing Chant. That's so much more likely. So I exchange some of the cards and then present my decks and also win 2-0. In the third round, I'm playing against a Finnish guy, and for some reason, I basically know most of the Finnish Legacy Elite. At least they know some guy I know, and Jori Huka, the current Finnish Legacy champion, and I do a lot of testing with him. And because of him, I feel most of the guys actually know me and know what I'm playing. So we sit down, he wins the die roll, and he wants me to go first. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, so you go first. No, I want you to go first. So it's pretty clear he's on Manaless Stretch. So we talk a bit about Manaless Stretch, and he tells me, my deck is really good, but it's got one problem. It loses to good players. So I tell him, yeah, so you're in for trouble. And he just looks at me and is like, yeah, I know. Yeah, what can I say? It's Manaless Stretch. I haven't ever lost, I even think, a single game against Manaless Stretch with elves. Because the key is to just eat up all the actual important guys. You let him dredge, but at some point you could just get Deathrite Shaman and Quirion Ranger online, even Scavenging Ooze at some point, and there's no way for him to win.
And
unless
then,
he's got the very
and then you drop a
draw.
cradle and just eat like 10 cards at a time.
Oh yeah, oh that feels so good. That's like sex. So in the next round, in round 4, I'm playing against a German guy, and he's playing Blue-White Red Delver. He's a really nice guy. I don't remember his name now, but I also won 2-0, and he made some sketchy plays. He seemed like a good player, but for example, in game 2 he starts Volcanic Island, main phase Brainstorm, go. So I'm like, what the fuck? What does this mean? I have no idea. So the only thing I could actually imagine what he was trying
Maybe
to find.
Sneak and Show?
No, he's Blue-White Red Delver. It's game 2. I already know.
Oh, it was our game 2 then.
Maybe
Yeah.
he was looking for triple gunshot.
on the first turn.
That is
Well,
a weird play.
that's pretty much never
Yeah, it's a
good,
totally
right?
weird play.
Unless you're playing Storm.
Yeah, yet the only way I could actually make sense of it, because in game 1 he actually seemed like an okay player, like even a good player. And the only way I could make sense of it is like, maybe he was looking for Gataxian Probe to find out whether he should force fulfill my first turn play. That's like the only way I could come up with any solution, but I felt it was just bad. So I win 2-0 as well, and so there's 2 rounds left. So in the semi to last round, I sit down across from Timo Schönemann. You might know him as the winner of Grand Prix Ghent. I also played against him in the last round of the Swiss at the Bazaar of Moxen, where we actually intentionally drew to get in the top 8. And yeah, of course, we both know what each other is playing. He's playing blue, black, green at Museum Storm. And for the side event, I actually took out 2 of my dedicated hate cards against Storm and put in another choke and a Nilrod. So Nilrod is still quite good against Storm. It's not as good as another discard spell or Mindbreak Trap. But yeah. I win the first game on the back of him not drawing what he actually needed. So in the second game, I think I mulliganed to 6, he mulligans to 5. And I keep 2 natural orders, 2 lands, and I believe 2 elves. So I get out my elf on the first turn, but actually for the draw, I actually draw the 3rd natural order. So Timo, on his second turn, he goes for Ponder into Cabot Therapy, and I feel like, no, I've lost this game. There's no way I'm going to win this. But much to my surprise, he actually names Glimpse of Nature. And yeah, his face kind of drops when I, after the game, show him that I actually sided out all 4 Glimpse of Nature. So that was like, I could have been dead there. Instead, Rurik Thar smashed his face, so yeah. That felt like I shouldn't have won it, because usually you really, especially with combo, you really should name a natural order. Even more so because I was actually representing it for the next turn. And yeah, I think he made a mistake there, but nobody's perfect. So for the last round is actually kind of interesting because the prize payout was a bit fucked up. So if you went 5, 0, and 1, you would get 3 dual lands. If you went 6, 0, you get 4 dual lands. But if you lose the last round and go 5 and 1, you only get 1 dual land. So obviously I offer the draw to my opponent. And he's like, he's a Finnish guy, and actually the first Finnish Magic player I played against that neither knew me nor did I know him. So that was already kind of strange. And yeah, he's very grumpy and not really in a good mood, and he's like, no, don't want to draw. So I explain it to him again, and the other guy sitting next to us also explain it to him that it's much better value to just draw, and he just gives me a look and is like, no, I came to game. I'm 100% sure I'm gonna win this match. And they're like, whoa, slow, come on, really?
Foreshadow.
Oh, so turns out he's playing Dragon Stompy, which is already kind
How
of
does that
interesting
get
on
to
its own.
5-0?
He just found bug Delver decks that didn't have the Force of Will.
Yeah, maybe he was playing an early version of a modern deck.
He actually wrote a report on the Dragon Stompy thread on the source. You can check there.
Oh, I'll have to go
So-
troll
Yeah,
that.
I'd have to read it and then I'd cry, so no.
We'll get Sean to do the research on that one.
Actually, somebody told me afterwards that this guy actually cried after losing the finals of the semifinals, of the side event. But I'm not sure. But I was told later. But I don't know. I think he spoke really big words before the last match, and it must feel kind of bad to lose. And yeah, so he actually wins the first game. Not so much on the backs of Chalice on 1, but more on actually Blood Moon that denied me my second green mana in order to go for natural order into the win. So that's the first and only game loss I ever took in the entire side event. So at this point I'm like, come on, you really have to beat this guy. He's not even cocky. He seemed like
Very determined.
not even determined. It's like very, very sad. And
Just a sad Finn. Just lives up near the North Pole.
yeah,
Very sad. Just wants to play Magic.
I mean, I really don't want to bash him as much as I'm doing right now, but right at the point when he said he was 100% sure he's gonna win this match, I was like, come on, you little... Yeah. So, the second game, he mulligans to 5, as he's supposed to do with Dragon Stompy. I believe he finds a Chalice on 1, but I don't really care, because Chalice on 1 isn't as problematic as one might think. You just play your other guys, you play your Virtual Arranger Morphed, you play your Visionaries, you've got the Senate, and at some point I just natural order for the win. I think he's got the... Oh, what's it called? Not Sudden Spoiling,
Sudden
but
Demise,
is it
yeah.
Sudden Demise? The new card? Yeah, he's got 2 copies of Sudden Demise and clears my board 2 times, but I think he's got nothing else going on. So, yeah. So we move on to the last game. He's on a play again, and that's where it's always scary against this kind of deck. Because if he's got the first turn Blood Moon, I've got 2 forests in my entire deck that I can have, otherwise I'm pretty much fucked. So, no surprises, he mulligans to 5 and starts with Mountain Go. So I'm like, okay, great. So I fetch my forest, play some elves, and on his second turn, he just plays another mountain and Umesawa's Chitte. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not gonna lose this match. I Thoughtseize him, and I see like Stormbreath Dragon, Magus of the Moon, and what else did I see? Some huge guys, maybe even Gathern Riders, I don't remember. I therapied him. I bought therapies. I actually played a lot more with therapies than I used to in the past, and I think they're great, but that's just a side note. So, yeah, I think he doesn't even cast any other spells besides that Chitte in that game, and yeah, so I won the side event. I actually won 4 blue duels, which should be right about, because the condition is actually much better than you'd expect. Right about 400 euros, a little less.
Woohoo!
So that's like, I don't know, a top 32 finish at the Grand Prix.
This shows you how bad the price payout at the Grand Prix is. Like compared to Ovino in Milano or Bazaar of Moxen. It's hilarious.
What did you get paid out, Philip?
$1,500 and
Dollars?
dollars.
They even paid you out in dollars? Wow.
Oh yeah. So but at least I got a Pro Tour invite, so I can play Legacy in Atlanta. Oh wait, no, I can't. So no.
Maybe there's a side event. You can gather some
I
people.
have no idea what I'm doing in Atlanta. Well, it's block constructed, whatever.
At least it'll be easy to build a deck. Just work on your drafting. That's the biggest important part, because that's the beginning of day 1 and beginning of day 2 is like a
Sure,
a
I've
booster draft.
played 2 drafts in my life already. This is enough for a Pro Tour, I think.
Yeah, you'll be like a savant.
Sure, like I mean, I would be preparing for the Pro Tour, but the Gen into Nyx is like released 2 weeks before, so it's pretty time tense, I guess.
So I guess you're gonna double the amount of drafts you will
Sure,
ever
like
have done at the Pro Tour.
Maybe I'll get in a third or fourth draft before the Pro Tour, but like yeah, I hope it will be fun.
So we'll see you at the pre-release then, right?
Yeah, best preparation. So he goes to the top 8 of the Pro Tour, and Brian Devil Marshall is like, "So Philip, tell us, how did you prepare for the Pro Tour?" "Well, I played my local pre-release."
Okay, challenge accepted.
That's how do it in Austria.
Sure.
Well,
Valentin Mackel, champion of all our pre-releases.
Well, congratulations again, Philip. Excellent job on the tournament, and thanks for putting on a show with all the alters and some of the type play. The commentators did make an interesting remark about how you played your graveyard, that is, like, played in front of you. And I know you're playing with Snapcaster, so that's kind of relevant for the playstyle as well.
Yeah, correct.
So graveyard in front, and then battlefield up at the top. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, because you really don't want to give an opponent to know that you have drawn Snapcaster Mage, and well, you could bring the argument that you remember all the spells you've cast, but tell me you remember every spell you cast in a 40-turn control mirror. Like, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Sometimes I've seen people suggest making notes on your life pad with like hash marks for like counterspell, brainstorm, swords to plowshares, using like apostrophes and backslashes, but in practice it ends up being very difficult to remember to do that and to remember what they mean.
another thing I managed at the Grand Prix was never being in timeout. Like, I finished every game.
That's actual accomplishment.
Yeah. Like, before the time was called, and I lost the mirrors in about 10 minutes. Like, it wasn't even a fight.
Well, what I like most about Miracles, at least compared to the old blue-white control decks before all of this, was before you just had Jace, and you're like, okay, to win, you'd need to sit there for a couple of minutes and Fate Seal, fine. Whereas now you're just like, oops, Entreat the Angels, kill you. It's a one-turn.
Yeah, it's just too good. Yeah, sure. But still, many Miracle players manage to draw round after round, and yeah, they probably shouldn't be playing this deck, I guess.
Or they're just taking too long to top, maybe. That's why.
Sure, yeah. Like, you really should have a lot of experience before bringing Miracles to any tournament, unless you're, not just like in any way.
So overall, would you make any changes to your deck for next time, or an expected GP that was being held, say, a month away?
Well, probably cut the third Flusterstorm for a Vendilion Clique, but I think I'm gonna test a lot more mirror matches, and I mean, like, I felt comfortable with the mirror matches, but they just didn't work out. 0 wins and 6 losses aren't gonna lie anyways, so probably a third Vendilion Clique somewhere in the deck, but that's it, I think, yeah.
And how do you think the results of this tournament are? What do they say about Legacy, or what do you think the way Legacy is going to move or has been moving?
It's kind of, there weren't so many Trune and Nemesis in the top 8 as they were expected, right? But the format's still like probably Nemesis, Miracles, and Combo. And I really do like this metagame, not of a play style consideration, but more like of how Miracles is positioned in this very metagame. Because like, you really beat up on those Patriot and Team America decks, whether they play True Nemesis or not. Some even boarded out True Nemesis against me, like, I don't know what they're doing. And you have a good matchup against these combo decks too, so as long as the metagame stays as it is, like Nemesis against combo against Miracles, I think Miracles is definitely the best positioned deck right there. And well, it's not the healthiest metagame, but it's at least fun to play in, at least for me.
So what deck would you besides 12 Post, which is definitely not your best matchup, what deck would you say that is at least somewhat present in the format is kind of your worst matchup?
Like, this matchup I don't like to play against is Stefan Texas and Sneak Attack. They're by no way a bad matchup, but they're just matchups that you can't really influence by your actions, by your skill, by your experience to win. Like, if Sneak Attack has those 3 enablers and double counter, you're dead. If Stefan Texas starts with E for a while and you kept a hand that's that can't really interact with it, you're dead. So those are the matchups that I would say like 50-50, probably a little worse sometimes depending on the build of the opponent's deck. But like those are the matchups I don't like to see. Murphog, if it's built the Seito way with 4 Cavern of Swords, is a bad matchup too. And everything else is just easy, right? It's just too hard to lose against most of the other decks.
Kobe, do you?
No, sounds good. Looking forward to. I'm actually going to a Legacy tournament in about like 6 hours.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
yeah.
Take my Miracles and you will win everything. Trust me.
I'm thinking more like 10 fins. Finish the rounds off in like 20 minutes. Grab
Well,
some.
20 minutes is fine for Miracles too if you play fast enough.
Yeah.
Like, I take normally 25 to 30 minutes, but yeah, this just works.
I think the shortest round I've ever had was in Standard, back when I think it was like Innistrad and Scars were still around. I think I finished an entire match in 12 minutes on the clock.
12 minutes.
12 minutes, including sideboarding. It was just like curve out, sideboard, curve out. My opponent was not in the game at all.
Yeah, that's standard, right? Well, what's my fastest match with Miracles besides game losing the opponent and stuff? Probably against High Tide at the Grand Prix. It took me 19 to 20 minutes. It was like counterbalance, Snapcaster 20-0. Second game, endless counter, Snapcaster turn 2, kill you.
I was actually watching that match because I had a buy in the first round.
Yeah.
And yeah, it felt kind of cool. The guy had, I think, no chance at all.
No, really. Just like game 1, he was counterbalance locked with 1 and 3 on top, and game 2 I had 2 lands, a Snapcaster, and rest of counter spells, so he's probably dead. Well, it was kind of a shame to play with 1 revised island. I really tried to hide it in the stream because like all my other duels and stuff are altered, but I just got 1 revised island. No island, Volcanic island. But yeah,
I've done that before. I've done that before with all FBBs and then one color.
Yeah.
White border. There we go.
You're really trying to hide it as long as it's possible.
Yeah.
The only white border.
Sure, normally
is
it
the
is.
summer
Normally
white
it is.
border.
But well, altering summer duels, that would be something, right?
Go away, man.
Now I'm gonna do that just to be the one.
You might black border some summer duels.
Yeah. Are you gonna knock some sense into me?
That'd be next level pimp, right?
Yeah. Reverse pimp. Now, Julian, you mentioned you were gonna tell us more about the main event where you went 6-2-1. Unfortunately, missing day 2, but.
Yeah, that's like the worst score you can have in the end, but as we know, things worked out in the end. But yeah, in the main event, I actually had 1 bye, because on Friday I went to the finals of a trial, but I had to mulligan into 5 twice and got hit by him, and then drew my favorite Hydra Avatar Progenitus, so that didn't work out. Although I actually bet Shop Maria card in the semifinals of the trial, which was by far the hardest match I ever played in a very long time. That's like the first time I really felt exhausted after a match. But yeah, so it didn't actually earn my second bye. So for the second round I sit down across from green-white, splashing black, hate bears, splashing for Silas Persecution. And yeah, it was a German guy, it was a nice guy. We actually drew in the end, because when the third time and the third game, time was called immediately, so I had 2 turns, he had 3 turns, and I actually almost pulled off the second turn kill, but I was like 1 card short of it, and I feel I had a pretty decent chance of actually winning the match, but he didn't want to concede, and that's fine. I also haven't conceded in situations like this, and in the end it actually worked out for me. This time it worked out for him because he went 6-0-3 and actually made day 2. So yeah, there's that. And I think my wins aren't as interesting to people. I just bet Esper Blades, Death in Texas, and Shardless Bug, as well as... Oh yeah. That's the matchup I received the most questions about. I played against 1 Miracles, and I actually 2-0'd it. And a lot of my friends... Yeah, I know. Considering the Bazaar of Moxen, I'm like now 5-0-1 against Miracles with elves. So
we really got a duel one day, right?
At some point, yeah. I was challenging you for the finals of the next Bazaar of Moxen, but
Sure.
you didn't want to come, so...
Well,
Let's see.
I might be coming. Planes have changed.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll be there
So-
and winning everything again, I guess.
Okay, we just have to make sure the top 8 brackets work out. So maybe you have to win the last or lose the last round in the Swiss. We don't know. Okay, so how did I actually beat Miracles? The first game was, like I always tell people, how they can at least have a slight chance of beating Miracles. You just go to the face. Yeah, you all in as soon as possible. You put them on the spot for having Terminus because there's no outplaying or playing around. You don't have the tools to... In game 1, you don't have the tools to deal with the counterbalance. There's nothing you can do. So I just throw everything to the table. He's got Terminus for the first time, and for the second time he just bricks and he doesn't find it. So it's like a small chance, but at least it is a chance. Game 2 is where it gets really, really interesting. Really interesting. Because the match goes on, he terminuses away some guys. I think he actually terminuses twice for only 2 creatures, which felt kind of bad. And he did a lot of fetching. I think he drew about 10 fetch lands over the entire game, so that's like half his life total. And I get in for some early beats at some point. So at some point he's down to 8 life, and I actually have 8 power on the table, considering that I can untap the Deathrite Shaman twice and kill him that way. So the situation is, I've got lethal damage on board, he's got 1 card in hand, Sensei's Divining Top in play, and I don't know, 7 lands. So I'm like, okay, so I guess I go for it, but to make sure, on my draw step, I draw the Thoughtseize. So to make sure the coast is clear, potentially, I Thoughtseize him. No, actually, I had the thought. I had saved the Thoughtseize. I had drawn another card for my turn, which I will tell you about later. So on my main phase, I Thoughtseize him. So this guy, he shows me Brainstorm. And I'm like, okay, that's suspicious. Why didn't he brainstorm in response? And the first thing that comes to my mind is, okay, he might have Entreat the Angels on top and wants to trigger it with the top and not lose 1 mana to brainstorm. So that's what I think might be the case. So I take the brainstorm, and this is the point where, you know, the High Council of the Shadow Knights might at some point try to expel me for abusing my powers, because I play Pithing Needle, and he's just like, okay, resolves. So I name top. And he's like, oh shit. So I go all in, kill him, and then after the match he just flips over the top card of his deck, and it's actually Terminus. So I have no idea what he was thinking, and I actually had to get him 2 times. First time with the Thoughtseize on the Brainstorm, which could have triggered the miracle, and second time with the Needle on the Sensei's Divining Top, and I actually got there 2 times, so don't ask me. Really, I didn't ask for these powers, it's just the way
Maybe
you
you
sometimes
just fell
run.
asleep in the match and you kind of played around him.
Yeah, maybe, like you play, I don't know, isn't there this card Pollen Lullaby you can use to... Oh no, that's not Pokemon. Pokemon is this Pummeluff? I don't know, that's what's it called in German.
Jigglypuff.
Quicklypuff, okay. So for the next round, I play against Chunk Hexmage, Chunk Depths, Chunk's Hexmage Depths, whatever you want to call it. And this was the round where I made a really, really interesting read. The way I feel, my opponent actually lost the game on the very first turn because he gave away slightly too much information. And I asked a lot of people about it, and like half of them don't even know what I was talking about, but I knew it immediately. So the guy I go first. Let me see. He goes first. He's like Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, Sensei's Divining Top, and then he plays Lotus Petal. And because he played that Lotus Petal, I feel he might have lost the game. Because by playing the Lotus Petal on the first turn, he was very clearly telegraphing 1 card and 1 card only. And because I picked up that information, I later was able to play around a trick and win the match. So you might already know which card.
Was the trick like the Smallpox deck?
Well,
Like
I couldn't
Entomb?
really know at that point.
Entomb or Crop Rotation?
Yeah, that sounds better. So, because he played the Lotus Petal, I actually got the read of Crop Rotation. Because he was on the play, he was playing what seemed to be to him an unknown opponent, so he played the Lotus Petal to make sure a Wasteland wouldn't blow him out. Instead, he would blow out the opponent. So on my turn, I'm just like, Deathrite Shaman go. On his turn, he plays a Swamp, taps out to play a Hex Mage. So at this point, I'm like, okay, so like, what's the worst case scenario? He end of turn crop rotations for Dark Depth, gets the token, and swings for lethal. So yeah, because that's the worst case and it actually kills me, I have to find a way to play around it. On my turn, I've got a hand that can put like 7 or 8 elves, maybe not as much, but about 7 elves to the table. I had like a Heritage Druid, a Nettle Sentinel, several Visionaries, and this is actually what I would have done had I not seen the Lotus Petal on the first turn that would try to play around Wasteland. So instead of actually throwing the hand to the table, which would leave Deathrite Shaman tapped, I just play some elves, like I think I play Nettle Sentinel, Heritage Druid, and maybe Quirion Ranger, and bounce. So the point is, I'm not completely committing to the board and leave up some mana. And as expected, he goes for end of turn crop rotation, gets the Dark Depth, and sacrifices the Hex Mage. Gets the 20/20 token. I didn't fetch, so I'm still 20 life, but yeah, that's 20 damage. So what I do is, on his upkeep, I actually untap the Deathrite Shaman with the Quirion Ranger, then tap the Quirion Ranger, the Heritage Druid, and the Nettle Sentinel for green mana, and eat the Hex Mage. I do it in the upkeep because he actually had Abrupt Decay in hand, and had I waited for the main phase, he could have played a Bayou, and in response to targeting the Deathrite Shaman, he could have Abrupt Decayed it, and I would have died. So that was really key, because now I went up to 22 life. He swings for 20, all the way down to 2. So I'm like, okay, I have to find a win. I untap, and I don't have any lands in play, because I had to bounce with the Quirion Ranger on my turn as well as on his turn, so I untap with no lands. And I have to find a way to win, because I'm not gonna survive another hit, I believe. For a very short moment, I'm like, okay, if I can activate Deathrite Shaman 10 times, maybe... Nah, that's out the window. That's not gonna happen. So I go for a Glimpse turn, and it's a really, really complicated Glimpse turn, because I just don't want to play a land, because I've got high hopes of actually drawing a Cradle, like I usually always do when I need it, but this time I didn't. So I keep drawing, not playing lands, get complicated interactions, and at some point I've got Behemoth in hand, and all I can do is produce 7 mana. Even if I play a Forest, it's just 7 mana, and I don't get to the fucking 8th mana. And I'm like, come on, this is not how I want to be leaving this tournament. So brain, and at some point I'm like, hey, there's a way. So what do you do with 7 mana and elves? It's kinda obvious. You just Green Sun Senate for 6 for Rurik Thar, because that guy's got reach.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
Yeah. So I get Rurik Thar into play. The guy untaps, swings again. Rurik Thar makes a noble sacrifice, and on my turn I just tap out and Crater of Behemoth and blow him out. So, wow. That was really one of the matches I knew I had to work for, and it felt so rewarding because I made all the right calls, all the right reads, and that was just... Yeah. Unfortunately, I actually lost the next round to Esperblade because he just had it all. At some point, you just lose with elves if he's got several copies of Zealous Persecution, Chit, and it was funny. On like the second or third turn, I thought sees him, and it's like staring into hell. You see 2 copies of Zealous Persecution. He's got Chitter, he's got Sword of Fire and Ice, he's got Meddling Mage, he's got, I think, Swords to Plowshares and Force. So I'm like, okay, even if I take 2, maybe even 3 cards out of this hand, I might still lose the game, and yeah, that's what I did.
That's
so in
rough.
the end, I end up
That's rough,
6-1, and yeah, but I don't know. Maybe I'm too old for actually worrying about sometimes losing to things you can't really influence. I mean, if you pick up a deck like elves, you accept to sometimes lose
Two Miracles.
to what might or might not be a better player, but yeah, 2 Miracles. Actually, it's been a long time. Yeah, but in the end, everything came together, and I'm really happy Philipp day 2'd. No, not only day 2, top 8'd, top 4'd. Because I feel the very first time we ran into each other was like, was it 2 years ago? Almost 2 years ago at Grand Prix Ghent?
Yeah.
Because we had talked to each other on the source before, but we didn't really know what each other was looking like. So we played in a side event, and the second round he sits down across from me, and he's like, are you Julian23 from the source?
Yeah.
And I feel like, what? Maybe? I don't know. Who is this guy? So he had actually, I think he told me there's only one shoe. Back then, I was on the dark side of the force. I was playing
On the good
Miracles.
side, yeah.
And that's what Arthur's Lord would say.
And so
Yeah.
so I beat you in the side event, and you said I only concede if you promise me to win the side event, and I did. So
Oh, yeah, I remember. True.
yeah, it did. Yeah, but
That's a man of his
so,
word.
like every time I have buys at a Grand Prix, like in Ghent, I had 3 buys and I lost the first 3 rounds. In Strasbourg, I had no buys, I made top 64, and in Paris, I had no buys either, I made top 8. So I don't think I'm ever going to have buys for any GP, because like it's not going to work out anyways.
You'll just have to keep
Yeah, you
playing
know
those
what-
pre-releases.
You know, there's this old Russian legacy saying, "Buys are for
Yeah,
girls."
sure.
And I think you just stay true to it.
Yeah, totally.
It's actually true. The first Grand Prix I played with no buys, I got 16th place. So there is some merit to that.
Yeah.
That was the Maverick, that time you placed with Maverick, right?
Yeah, I had a sick read on the metagame, totally prepared. Lost in the finals to Vermeer. Or lost in the last round to Vermeer, so. It's, the mirror's hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to play
Oh,
against
don't
your
get
own
me
deck.
started on the Maverick mirror. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's like when you have the best deck for the format and prepare for everything, but yourself.
Well,
That's
look,
right.
You did that as well.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for a story from Julian on when he'll finally lose to his own deck. Not to his own deck,
How
to
you
the
lose?
mirror.
To the mirror.
Yeah, that would be interesting. That's when you know that you've played a lot. When you finally lose to the mirror.
While for elves, you sometimes can actually lose the mirror. The mirror is actually interesting because at some point, of course, you want a natural order for the win. But if you jump the gun too early and you natural order for like 16 or 18 damage, the other guy might actually be forced to do the same, because suddenly you've got this 5/5 blocker and some other guys, and going for the win might be too dangerous for him. So that's actually a match I had the week before Grand Prix Paris, where I natural ordered for 18 damage. My opponent was kind of forced to do the same. So we had this weird draft match where everybody had like some guys and one very big guy. So we kept trying to get in attacks. It didn't really work out. In the end, that's why Chairman goes all the way.
Right on. Well, thanks, Philip, and thank you, Julian, for coming on to our podcast and sharing your experience with Grand Prix Paris.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me
We
on as well.
appreciate you guys taking your time out of your busy Magic schedules to spend some time.
Sure.
And we're looking forward to more success from you guys in large events
Like
here in the.
pre-releases, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's right. Just make sure to open all the good rares, and you'll be fine.
That's how you do it at the Pro Tour, right?
Oh, this actually sounds like a better plan than anything else. Opening the best packs, yeah? That's
Yeah.
like
Please do that.
like
Well, sometimes you have to open them and then pass them, so that's kind of
No,
you want to make sure you get the best
no.
rares.
I'm not gonna pass the pack. I'm keeping it.
Just put it in your pocket and pass another one.
Sure.
You actually have to wear a t-shirt that says, "I'm gonna rare pick no matter what."
It's like an
There is a market for Pro Tour stamped rares, so you might be onto something.
sure like next level read.
Maybe you can ask the judge to use a nice stamp to put something cool on it.
Thanks for listening on another episode of Everyday Eternal. I'm Jacob.
I'm Matt,
I'm Philip.
And I'm Julian.
and thanks very much for listening.
We appreciate your feedback. Email us at everydayeternalcast@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/everydayeternalpodcast. And follow us on Twitter @eternalmtg.